Hello, welcome everybody to another Reader's Advisory webinar. My name is Shellie Ziegler, and I'm a library consultant here at the Mississippi Library Commission. And today we are going to be talking about thrillers. And you should know offhand that thrillers are my favorite genre. So I might get a little excited, but I'll try to keep it tapped down. So here we go. So first, let's talk about what is a thriller, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. So a thriller is a mystery, but it's not quite like a traditional mystery. It also can have some horror elements as well, but it's not like a traditional horror book. It's a type of mystery. Thrillers are often action-packed, and they're typically fast-paced. And they have moments of tension, anxiety, sometimes some fear, but they can be slow burns as well at times. So it's really hard to put thrillers in a box. But so let's just put it this way. Thrillers are mysteries of some type, but not all mysteries are thrillers. So if that's not confusing, I haven't done my job. But thrillers are genres onto themselves, and you either like them or you don't. So, and of course, as I said before, I love them. There are various types of thrillers. So there are subgenres within the genre. So there are domestic thrillers, which are the ones that I think a lot of people think of when it's always like, maybe give an example, like the housewife usually, and then there's like issues with the husband, someone dies, and blah, 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 blah. Those are very traditional thrillers that we see a lot of nowadays. Psychological thrillers are real popular as well, and those often go hand in hand with the domestic thriller. Then we have action thrillers, where you see a lot more action within the thriller itself. Political thrillers, we're seeing a lot more of those these days. Spy thrillers, which we don't see as much anymore, and I hope we get more of those, because I really like those. Legal thrillers, John Grisham used to write a few of these, but not so much anymore. And then we have some science fiction thrillers as well. Again, you don't see as many of those, but maybe we will. So just to sum up some of the various different subgenres of thrillers. So now we are going to get into some of what I think are some great thrillers that are going to be coming out in the next couple of months. So Riley Sager. If you do not have Riley Sager in your library, then something is wrong. You really need to. Riley Sager is a male. A lot of people think Riley Sager is a female because most of his books have a female protagonist, but he is male. And but anyway, so his new one coming out, which I cannot wait, and I don't buy books. I'm very cheap, but I did pre-order this book, and it will be coming out in June 20th of this year, and it's called The Only One Left, and it is a gothic fiction. So it is, I call Riley Sager, to me, he is the king of thrillers, but it is about a young caretaker who is assigned to work for this woman who, and of course she has this great mansion. I love old mansion books, but in a thriller context. I have a coworker who likes old mansion books, but in a more literary fiction context. I just always smile and laugh about that to myself. So there's this young caretaker who is assigned to work for this woman who, back in 1929, she was accused of a Lizzie Borden type massacre. And it is now 1983. And so, of course, she's a little nervous about that. So on the book, I'm going to read this because it's kind of really haunting. There is a little poem about the woman that was accused of this Lizzie Borden type massacre. And it goes, at 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope, stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. It wasn't me, Lenora said, but she's the only one not dead. So that should leave you wanting to read this book. So the next title we have is Sing Her Down by Ivy Pochoda, and it has recently come out. And this is a book that is a crime thriller. If you read the book or seen the movie No Country for Old Men, it is kind of like that type of gritty type book. Some say this is a gritty Western thriller with a feminist twist. It's a book about Florence. Her nickname is Florida, and she arrives in an Arizona women's prison, and she meets her cellmate, which her name is Dios, and they sort of know each other, but they're not pals. And Dios knows the truth about Florida's crimes. Something happens, and you know, always can't say too much. And they both get out. Dios becomes a little obsessed with Florida, and there becomes this kind of cat and mouse chase, which goes through from Arizona to Los Angeles. This is a book about bad people doing bad things, and so that's really fun to read. A lot of times it is. I like it because it's a multicultural book, and it's very spellbinding, and it has just female protagonists at the very forefront. So that is Sing Her Down. All right, and then we have Rogue Justice by Stacey Abrams. And Stacey Abrams is in the news all the time. And this also recently came out. And this is a political thriller. So if you like those, this is one for you. This is the second book in the Avery King series. The first one was While Justice Sleeps, which did really well. And so Avery King is the character who is a Supreme Court clerk, and she is back. And people have been waiting for this book. Avery is approached in this book she's approached at a legal conference by a fellow law clerk who believes that his boss is being blackmailed. And in the days before that he's blackmailed, that he discovers this, his boss has been killed. So he seeks out Avery because he knows that Avery's very savvy. And Avery can't say no. She can't look away from this injustice. So she must dig deeper and find out what has happened. Of course, it's very twisty. There's a lot of clever puzzles that must be solved. So if you are a Stacey Abrams fan, and there's a lot of you out there, this will be a huge in-demand book that you should really order for your library. Bad summer people. More bad people doing bad things. This might be a theme of this Reader's Advisory webinar. This is by Emma Rosenblum. This also just recently came out. This is, as you can tell by the cover, this is the ultimate beach read. This is a debut novel, and it is about this group of people that they live in New York, wealthy New York people that like to summer on Fire Island. And they all like to summer together, and they own these summer homes. And they think they are pretty good people, but they aren't. And there's a lot of infidelity. There's a lot of secrets. If you've seen the TV show White Lotus I believe it's on HBO, this book is very similar in that regard. It has that type of feel. Of course, it's very twisty and steamy. it's I really enjoy this book. It's a very good escape book if you like reading about bad people on the beach. Ware the Woman just came out. Megan Abbott. Megan Abbott is has a huge name. She's been around for a little while now, but every book she seems to put out seems to become more and more popular. I'm a huge Megan Abbott fan. So this just came out at the end of last month. It's a psychological fiction, and it has a real gothic fiction feel. If you like the book Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, this is your book. It is about a woman, and she has recently married this man, and they go to visit his parents in Michigan, in the UP Michigan, they say, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and so it's very isolated up there. So they go to visit his father, and her name's JC is the protagonist, and she's newly pregnant, and the father of her father-in-law is very overly interested, I would say, in her pregnancy. And at first it just seems like, oh, that's so sweet. But then slowly it becomes, oh, that's so weird. And then it becomes, oh, that's so sinister. And then I'll stop there. What I really like about this book, and what I think makes this book stand out from a lot of the others, is that there's a huge emphasis on a woman's right to have control of not only her body, but her own healthcare choices. I have not seen this, but this type of emphasis in other books that are thrillers in the past. So made me very, very happy. So highly recommend this book. Highly recommend that you purchase it for your library. We have The NIGERWIFE by Vanessa Walters that just came out. So this is about a young woman that goes missing in Lagos, Nigeria. So she marries a man in Nigeria. She's a woman from London, and she feels like a lot of thrillers do this, and I like it. Some people find it very just formulaic, but if you like the formula, you don't mind it. Kind of like anything. So she has the perfect life. She feels like she has a perfect husband. She's so happy, and then things go wrong. So she ends up dying. This is not a giveaway. And her aunt back in London thinks, things are a little fishy. And so she goes to Nigeria to figure out what's what. And of course, things are not what they seem. And that's what makes the book so interesting. So I like this book because it takes place in another country that thrillers don't normally take place in. A lot of times they're in England. A lot of thrillers take place in England or America, but a lot of times they're in England. So I really like this fact that this one is not. So I have to give it kudos for that. So highly recommend this book as well. So, and then we have the queen of thrillers, Ruth Ware. Surely you have Ruth Ware in your library. She's been around for a while now. She came out onto the forefront with her book, The Woman in Cabin 10. And then she's been churning out thrillers ever since. Her last book was, I think it was The It Girl. And that was really good. This book is a huge departure from her other books. It is actually a kind of thriller that I have never read before. It's a technical thriller, and a lot of people like it. And then there's some people that don't like it because it's so different from what she's written before. Anyway, Ruth is often hailed as the new Agatha Christie. Some people like that. Some people don't. Some people think, oh, there's never be another Agatha Christie. But, you know, she is very good in her field. But so to tell you a little bit about this book, this is a woman in a race against time to clear her name and her husband's name, because they are both being accused of murder. At first, it's her husband, and then it's her. But what it is that her and her husband, they are both in the business of, they are called penetration specialists, in that they help to break into buildings and get into various types of software and things of that. Here comes in the technical part. But after a routine assignment, things go wrong, and something happens, and her husband he dies. And then the police suspect her. And anyway, it is a different book for her. And I think that you either like it or you won't. But I like that Ruth is doing something different. I have to give her props for that. So that is 0 Days. Next book we have is called The Night It Ended. And this is also a debut novel. And I like to throw in debut novels in these RA webinars because, you know, like I was just talking about Ruth Ware, you know, how she's been around for a while. You know, at one time she had to write a debut novel, and she was a nobody that no one had heard of. So I like to throw in these debut novels because they might be the next Ruth Ware. So just because you hadn't heard of them doesn't mean you shouldn't be giving them a try and purchasing them for your library system. So The Night It Ended by Garner, which will be coming out later this month. It is about a criminal psychologist. And once again, you're going to be so shocked. Are you ready? She has the perfect life. Yes. She is an expert in female violence. That sounds so interesting. Anyway, so this is a really a neat setting. This is a setting that I always really like. So she's called to investigate a mysterious death at a boarding school for troubled girls. I love settings in mansions, creepy houses, and boarding schools. Didn't have to be for troubled girls, but I love boarding school settings. So anyway, it's dark and twisty. I think Katie does a good job as being her first book, and I think you should check it out. All right. What do we have here? A big mansion, a chateau, as they say, by Jaclyn Goldis, that recently came out. If you like thrillers, you probably know Lucy Foley. She wrote the Guest List, the Hunting Party. So this book reminds me a lot of Lucy Foley's writing. Anyway, so this book is about a group of girls who had gone to school together in France many years ago. And they had this chateau had belonged to one of the girls' grandmother. And so now it is, it's like 20 years later. And the grandmother, she's alive, and she invites the granddaughter and her friends back to come stay at the chateau again. And it seems kind of out of the blue because she had not invited them back since then. And so you're like, why is there, because there was nothing really special. It wasn't like a anniversary or a reunion or anything. So they come back, for this get together. And then like the next day, the grandmother dies. I'm not giving this away. This happens really soon. And then the girls start pointing fingers at each other, like who did it? Who did it? And so that has a very Agatha Christie feel to it to me. So anyway, I just love it because it has all the elements there of a great thriller. So give it a chance. So, okay, so for now, briefly, I just want to talk about some books, a few books that aren't new, but as Ann Patchett, I'm going to steal something that she does. And she says on her Parnassus Bookstore Instagram, if you haven't read it, it's new to you. And then I'm going to say, you haven't read it, it's new to you and your patrons. So if you are looking to diversify your collection and you maybe aren't finding diverse authors that are putting out new books, it's okay to add books from what we call a back catalog title. So, and that is like, that is an effective way to add diverse authors into your collection. And as I have on this slide, you can always use Novelist to search for back titles as well. So I have just a few that I thought would be good examples of this. So we have the Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, and it came out in 2022. And if you read Mexican Gothic, it was very popular a few years back, just like a couple of years back, not very old. This is kind of similar to that. It is about a woman named Beatrice, and she marries a man, and his first wife had died. I like this because it deals with the house again. And so she marries this man. And so his first wife had died, and when she goes to his house to look, because he already has his house and she lives with him, there's something weird about the house. And I like the fact that it's got a Rebecca feel again. So I always like looking for that Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier style. His sister like doesn't like her, and so anyway, it has very haunting, and it just has this kind of romance, spiritual type tone to it. Highly recommend it. So look into that if you don't have that in your collection. The next selection I have is River Woman, River Demon by Jennifer Givhan. Also came out in 2022. She's a Mexican-American author as well. This is a gothic and kind of a supernatural thriller as well. And it's it really is. It's really good. It's really out there, but it's cool. So it is about a woman who is a Chicana artist, and so her husband is a college professor, and he is, and here's a big theme in thrillers, it's like, and you probably noticed this in this webinar, someone is usually arrested for a murder that they did not do, or some type of action that they had no part of. So her husband is arrested for the murder of her best friend, and she knows he didn't do it. So this reminds her of a incident that happened in her childhood that she forgot about. So she goes, so he's been arrested, and so she goes back to Texas, and she does some investigation, and this is where the supernatural part comes in, to help clear his name. Anyway, this one is probably the most supernatural of all the books that I've talked about today. But if you like that, you'll really enjoy this book. I really like this book. Okay, and then we have 7 Years of Darkness. This is a South Korean author, You-Jeong, and 7 Years of Darkness is so, it reminds me of a movie. Like, I felt like I was reading a movie script when I was reading this book. So if you like that, then you'll like this book. You-Jeong wrote the book The Good Son, which was very popular when it came out. So if you remember that, you'll like this book. It's what I would call a crime thriller. She has been compared to, in her country, to like Stephen King. She's kind of the Stephen King of her country. So what it's about is about a young girl who dies. A lot of death and thrillers, but you know, that's why we like, that's, if you like that thing, that's why we read them. So it's been 7 years since a young girl has been dead. So she died, but at the scene of her death, there were 3 men there. And one of the men that were there, he went to prison for the death. So stick with me, his son, this book is kind of his perspective about what life has been like since his dad went to prison. And he receives a package about what really happened the night of that girl's death. And that is what the book's about. And it's a lot of past, present, back and forth. I think it's very well done. I think the translation, there's not an issue with it being translated. Sometimes a translation doesn't go very well, and you can tell that it's been translated, but I don't think in this one at all. So anyway, I recommend thinking about putting this in your collection. And I just recommend that you think about putting authors of different cultures in your collection. So that's what I have for you today. If I can help you at all with your collection development of thrillers, I would love to, because it is a big passion of mine. So thank you for listening to me today. This is my email and my phone number, and I hope you have a great day.